Hey there, crew. Because Henri Matisse is my favorite artist, I have more books by Henri Matisse, or about him. So, this is called Matisse's Garden, and it has reproductions of actual artworks by Matisse. So, let's take a walk through his garden. One day, the artist Henri Matisse cut a small bird from a piece of white paper. So, again, painting with scissors. It was a simple shape, but he liked the way it looked and didn't want to throw it out. So he pinned it on the wall of his apartment to cover up a stain. So I guess that's how it all started, covering up stains on the wall with cut shapes. The bird seemed lonely all by itself, so Matisse cut out more shapes which joined the bird on the wall. What do some of these shapes look like to you? What do you see in those shapes? To me, I kind of see like a paint splat or coral reef, maybe even like a little squid or octopus. As he cut shape after shape from the white paper, he thought about a trip he had taken many years before to the islands of Tahiti. The shapes looked like the birds, the fish, the seaweed, and all the things he had seen there. And more sea creatures that looked like the shapes he cut out. As the scissors glided through the paper, he thought about how a bird must feel when it flies. As he cut, Matisse felt like he too was flying with the birds. Soon his walls were covered with plant and animal shapes. They captured the feeling of soaring and the sensation of swimming, but they didn't convey the bright blue of the sky or the deep blue of the sea. So he made a new work, this time pinning his white forms to sheets painted azure and marine blue. Whoa, and it opens up to one of Matisse's big works. He painted blue papers of different colors, shades, and tints of blue, and then put his white shapes on top so they would kind of pop out. When he saw how the color brought his shapes to life, he asked his assistant to paint sheets of paper in a range of shades from vermilion to lemon to violet. Instead of using only white paper, he decided he'd make his shapes by cutting directly into colors. He tried a pink leaf against a background of orange and a green leaf against a background of black. He cut leaves of other hues and set them against backgrounds of every shade, experimenting with different harmonies and contrasts, the way the colors played with and against each other. What counts most with colors are their relationships, Matisse thought. Colors work together. So here's some of his plant shapes on different colored backgrounds. And contrast means opposite. Just like red and green are opposites, blue and orange, and yellow and purple. And black and white are opposites too. He realized that every shape he cut created another shape. Instead of throwing away the leftover pieces, he added them to the composition, and there weren't leftovers at all. Matisse cut and cut, and all the pieces fell to the floor. Kind of like a puzzle there, the leftover pieces. Here's some more of his cutouts. I think they're super funky and fun. Sometimes the shapes he cut were simple, like squares. And there's his cat walking through the papers. But when he arranged them in just the right way, they took flight like a swarm of bees. So simple shapes together can become complex shapes. Whoa. So here's his squares and rectangles all put together to create little flying bees. So the bees are black and white, contrast, opposites, but then he has the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, scattered throughout in a pattern as well. It looks like they're flying and bursting through the air. He composed his shapes to show familiar scenes like a woman in a room with a vase of flowers. So he would draw what he saw, he would paint what he saw, he also cut shapes to resemble what he saw in real life. and he turned familiar objects into simple forms, which he then composed into patterns. So, an arrangement of objects on a table, he also did the still life. So there's a portrait of a person, including a still life, objects on a table. Here's just pure abstraction and fun shapes. His cutouts started very small, but they got larger and larger, and then larger as an entire wall. Go big or go home, he thought, until they stretched across the walls of his studio, curving around corners and covering doors. It's like a whole world of shapes. Matisse's garden. Matisse realized happily, I've made a little garden around me where I can walk. And here's a giant picture he made. The mermaid and the parakeet. And for his garden, Matisse cut a small bird from a piece of blue paper. And then here at the end of the book, it goes through all of the actual artworks that you saw throughout that he made with his cut paper shapes and collaged all together. So, cut paper, collaged and glued and arranged in a certain way, was kind of started by Henri Matisse. So he can do all sorts of different art styles and techniques, and that's one of the reasons why he's one of my absolute favorites. So hopefully this inspires you to continue with your Matisse work and maybe come up with a style or technique of your own, just like Matisse did. Keep up the good work.